Man does not possess love. Man does not own this emotion. It does not rise in him to be turned on and off at his pleasure. This infinite emotion abides in space and is the common property of all things that love. Therefore, man is its steward and its servant. It is his right to give it, but it is not right for him to dictate as to its action or its consequences or the motions which it shall follow in the achievement of its works. So, true understanding of this kind brings Buddha finally to the consummation of his concept of what is love. And he analyzes it and he tries to find a word. And in translating, we try to find the word that carries his meaning as nearly as we can. He searches our terms for love and finds that they are not useful very much because of the overtones we have associated with them. The very moment that we think of love, we think of desire. We think of the rise of passions within ourselves. We think of our affections, and perhaps we become immediately melancholy at the thought that we are loveless or that our love has been betrayed. Therefore, everything that we have as a connotation of love has become semantically outraged. And when we even try to think of the love of God, we are only able to think of this love in some relation to human emotion. And there are many persons who have left religion merely because some religious person has been unkind to them. They have been unable to escape the infinite personalization of the terms that they use. Buddha also, of course, shows us how before the word love can be placed many other words, such as personal love, impersonal love, selfish love, unselfish love. These terms are perfectly proper to our thinking, and we use them every day, although the thinking itself is unreal. We do not think the term selfish love is particularly unreasonable, yet in a strange way the mixture of these terms has resulted in the dilution of our conduct. We have accepted the compromise of conduct with the words until they are strangely and terribly mixed together. So Buddha is searching for a new word, something that carries with it the kind of love that he means. And he finally hit upon a term which we translate kindness. Now, kindness is a very simple word. To most Western persons, it is not ardent enough. It doesn't carry with it the tempests of affection, which we signify as necessary. There are many people who do not believe their relatives love them, unless these relatives selfishly try to possess them. And the individual who does not experience possession is not sure that they are the recipient of affection. Buddha says this is due to habit, to false mental training, and to the deluding of our senses by traditional acceptances. Kindness, however, is to us somewhat too impersonal. We can be kind to animals. We do not expect anything from these animals. We simply pat them on the head, and if they give us one great eyeful look, we are completely consoled. That's all we expect. Or if they remain with a certain note of faithfulness through the years, we begin to consider them excellent substitutes for humanity. Actually, however, perhaps when we see the little dog or the little animal and reach out our hand and pat it, it is perhaps, as Buddha would point out, the most perfect experience or example of love that we have ever exercised. First of all, it is so simple that we have overlooked it. We have certainly overlooked this power to reach out our hand and touch gently the person in trouble. we have overlooked the possibility of this kindness reaching into situations which we have deluged with remedies and which stay unmended. It is this simple, unulterior motion, this simple expression of ourselves to something from which we expect nothing, in which we express true tenderness, a truly great emotion, which because it is so slight in our experience, we have disregarded. So we say that kindliness has some mysterious power, and Buddha points out that unkindness is one of the great detrimental powers, that a tremendous amount of ill karma rises from unkindness, that this unkindness is rooted in unthoughtfulness, or indifference, or in pressures of one kind or another. Therefore we have to use certain exercise of will, or have to immerse ourselves in a stupid situation, or we have to be indoctrinated with false ideas before we are unkind. And as we are rescued from these ulterior and false values, the result is an increase in kindliness in our own natures. Can we love anything so much that we can be truly unkind? So we begin to rationalize this. What is kindness? Kindness may, to our mind, be the desire to tell our adversary what we think of him for his own good. Here again, however, a little analysis will frequently indicate we're not doing it for his own good. We would like to think that we are. But what we are doing it for is because it gives us a great deal of satisfaction to do it. Yet when this same person does something to us for our own good, we bitterly resent it and declare this person to be cruel and unkind. Now, kindness, of course, like the kindness of parent for child, cannot be a complete emotion without certain reservations. There must be a strong kind of kindness. And Buddha liked to believe that his doctrine, his disciplines, constituted the forces or factors to create a strong kind of kindness. A kindness which becomes a common denominator glorifying other relationships. Buddha also thought of the term friendship. But he considered that this also had fallen into ill repute, not because friendship was wrong, but because the word friendship no longer conveys the true meaning which he is seeking to grasp. And we know from our own experience that friendship is exploited, and exploited desperately by all involved in the factor. Therefore, friendship to his mind is more easily exploited than kindness. Kindness leaves the exploiting one in a tremendous situation of self-conviction. It is very difficult to do an ill act to a person who is truly kind. It is also very difficult to think of selfish kindliness. Or is it very easy to imagine a negative pull for kindness? We have the term unkindly. But where we can only use this unform, we are using only a reversal of the word itself. When we oppose kindness to something, it must be to cruelty or something of that nature. For kindness to Buddha represented a subtle stratum beneath things. Kindness makes the home better, even though there be frequent talk of love. Love without kindness is barren. Kindness without love is unthinkable, because in some way kindness has to carry the basic impulse of love. And the basic impulse of all love is to give of self. Therefore, kindness is a motion or action from self as directly as possible, the motive being service, the motive being encouragement, or some emotional action which has a nobler and more positive connotation. So while we can rationalize and argue kindness out of existence, Buddha points out that this rationalization of kindness is not important. It has no real bearing upon anything, because kindness is a natural instinct and impulse in those in whom life has begun to mature. And while in many instances this kindness is obscured, locked, and only capable of partial expression, still in certain situations the human being is moved to be kind, not because his religion tells him to, not because it's going to make him more acceptable to his neighbor, but simply because he feels that way. And this feeling of basic kindness and kindliness, Buddha feels should be cultivated and could be made stronger in the life of every individual who comes in contact with other persons. Buddha also points out that this kindliness carries within it the basis of possible human relationships that can lift our world out of tragedy. Kindliness, if generously and generally practiced, would undoubtedly result in man seeking understanding, whereas now he seeks misunderstanding. Now, a man seeks negative things for two reasons. First, because he wishes to exploit them, or second, because he believes them to be true. Thus, he is taking advantage of a negative condition, or else he is accepting that which he has expected to find. The expectation is in himself. And because of this expectation, he is ever able to discover what he expects. As man changes inwardly, therefore, and his expectations change, he discovers that the world around him appears differently. And to the kind, the world is kindly. And if individuals are not kindly, this does not change the basic conviction, because this kindness is not rising from the act of another, but from the instinct of self, from within the inner part of our own experience. So Buddha gives us sympathy, kindliness, compassion as being the great terms under which love becomes the minister of human good, and that the purpose of love is to give expression and integration to these things. Persons are brought together in every conceivable relationship of life for only one essential purpose, and that is to discover truth. Regardless of the situation, there is a truth in it somewhere, and that truth has to be good. And the discovery of that truth is the solution of that situation, whatever it may be. Man seeking truth with a full heart loves that which brings him truth, whether it is immediately enjoyable or not. And having become convinced that the world is the instrument for the attainment of truth, that this machinery that has been set up has as its ultimate purpose the release of man from suffering, man can then love the world with a great love. But by discipline and by growth and by understanding and penetration, he learns the lessons at the same time. He must not think that he can love only that which teaches him nothing. In other words, only that which caters to him. This is a very negative attitude, and one which can never release the soul from suffering. Man must love most that by which the law is revealed, by which value is set up and established in his own consciousness. If, therefore, love is more important 16 times than the disciplining of the mind itself, Buddha is telling us that actually Buddhism is an escape from the tyranny of mind, and that just as man must rescue his consciousness from the tyranny of his mind, he must also rescue love from the tyranny of his attitudes. It is this rescuing that restores the sublimity of love, even as the rescuing of the mind restores the sublimity of consciousness. Therefore, consciousness and love are intimately associated. They are perhaps in their essence and substance identical. Whether they be identical or not, we do not know, but the disciplines by means of which we attain both are the same. And it is easier, as Buddha points out, to defeat the mind, to rescue the mind in its intellectual procedures, than it is to rescue the heart. Therefore, the rescuing of the heart is the 16 times greater than the rescuing of the mind. Man may rationally be converted to anything, but his instincts may remain the same. And it is to reintegrate instinct that causes the need for this Buddhist concept of constant watchfulness without tension. It is the purpose of the individual to be aware of those values which need changing. Now, Buddha gives us also this wonderful concept of awareness without tension. He tells us that we may perceive our own insufficiency without resentment or regret. We can see our faults without being proud of them, or attempting to defend them, or attempt to conceal them, or to die of regret because we have them. These excessive attitudes are meaningless. When man perceives an insufficiency in himself, he may perceive it with a great gentleness. He may perceive it without any attitude of destruction or negation. The discovery of that which is necessary is the gentle, tensionless invitation to follow the new measure of understanding which has been attained. The moment we perceive that we are wrong, Buddha recommends that we be very grateful, because it is a sign that we have grown, and that we shall also love both this growth and the peculiar situation that gave it to us. And if we find that an unhappy situation has given us this insight, then toward this unhappy situation, we should also send the full blessing of our gratitude, because our gratitude is due to that which helps us, and adversity may be the greatest help of all. So without resentments, without regrets, we simply reach out and accept the challenge of value. And in so doing, we do it almost as we would accept a sacrament, with full contrition of spirit, with a great gentle rejoicing that we have now learned something, and that this learning will not only help us to grow, but will take from our lives one of the ways in which we have hurt others. Therefore, that the correction of one degree of ignorance in ourselves is an infinite gift to all that lives forever. Thus our gratitude goes to the experience that serves us, and we reach it, and we accept the adversary as a friend, as in the story of the Christian monk who was very devout. And one day, according to the legend, the demon appeared in his cell. And because this monk was very devout, he looked up, and for a moment he did not even realize the nature of his visitor, so he simply blessed him, and the visitor vanished. This spirit of blessing this acceptance of all things, causes the adversary to vanish. And we discover that the adversity is in ourselves, and that as a true affection grows within us, that we no longer have to sit back and remember the sorrows we have been through. These are wiped away in what might be generously termed this generous sympathy for life, this deep understanding of value. Now, many feel that this would be a great defeatism, because they have lived on a surface of tempests and strife. But these people who are clinging desperately to the wheel of their own necessities, of their own selfishness, of their own egoism, are forever seeking help. These persons are suffering. They are miserable. They are unhappy. They are sick. And many of them will shorten their lives and efficiencies, and will go out of this life embittered, and will carry this bitterness into the future. These people are not demonstrations of the success of our mortal thinking. These people do not prove that we do not need to grow. They prove conclusively that our attitudes are wrong for all concerned. And how can we go on generation after generation, individually and collectively, clinging desperately to these things that we daily see to be wrong? Buddha has only this simple answer to give: that this seeing of wrongness is not enough. The thing we must do is gain the seeing of rightness. To be constantly able to see what is wrong with the world does not solve this problem unless it moves us to the cultivation of rightness. Thus our complaint is ineffective unless we take it into ourselves and find it the impulse behind a correction of character. To love greatly, then, one must learn and understand and experience love under discipline. We must some mysterious way be educated in our affections even as we are in our thoughts. Now, actually, we think that education is imposing thought upon us. Factually, this is not true, although we try to make it true. Actually, education is helping the individual to release thought, to find instruments for the expression of his own creativity. In the same way, the disciplines upon affection are not to impose some code of east or west upon the love in man, but to impose upon the personality certain discipline by means of which true love can be released through that personality. Love does not need to be educated, but man must be better educated than he is, or he cannot know love. Love does not require the kind of education that comes merely from schooling. Therefore, it comes from experience, from loving and being loved, and from gradually realizing that all selfishness of affection destroys love, and that all selfishness of attitude profanes these great spiritual values which lie beneath our entire way of life. If, therefore, man would truly love, he may love upon the various levels of his attainments. There is, Buddha points out, great virtue in the love of the household, that the love for parent and child shall not be relinquished in the love of truth. For true love is a growing thing, forever including more. And if the love of humanity is not old enough, wise enough, and strong enough to preserve also the love of the child and the love of the family, then man has not learned to love. He has merely made a mental decision and has perhaps used love as an excuse to avoid immediate responsibility, or to gain a glamorous career to which he is not entitled. Therefore, man loving more wisely and more beautifully does not depart from things, rather he enriches things. His love must grow to universal proportion. And in this larger love, there is never neglect of any personal need, but rather a purification and redemption of that need, so that the individual goes on with a more inclusive ability to love. The fact that a Buddhist arhat or mystic has learned to love many children does not mean that he would not love his own. It would mean, however, that he would love his own more wisely, and he would not love his child because it is his child, but because it is truth in a little body walking in the world. He would not love his child less, but would love child in principle more. And this affection would cause no neglect to special duty, but rather an ennobling, by means of which, as the parent to one child, he may be wiser, and as the loving friend with the kindly heart to other children, he can serve them also. It is not a problem of neglect. It is a problem of the individual growing. Impersonal love does not destroy the beauty of personal love, but raises it from mortality to immortality, as the Sufi mystic has pointed out. And as a shadow of this great transition, the purification of our human emotions becomes the symbol of our attainment of universal affection. Buddha therefore points out that without love all search for truth fails, because man really searches for truth only because of love. And without love as the basis of his search, he is servant of ambition or ulterior motive. It is not the end of wisdom that a man shall be wise. It is the end of wisdom that a man shall be good. And no man can be good without love. And there can be no true love without goodness. Therefore, skill is not given to man that he shall be skillful, but rather that he shall be good, and shall use his hands for the good of those who need. In everything that man achieves, good is the goal, and good is a consciousness. The ability of the individual to reside in the consciousness of good brings him very close to the Buddhist nirvana. And in this goodness, there is a rich warmth, a deep understanding. Buddha asks man to outgrow only the evils in things, only their weaknesses, only his own inabilities. He says that growing up will not make us love less but more, and that any individual who has grown so worldly wise that he has mistaken wisdom for good, that he has mistaken skill for integrity, that he has mistaken possession for affection, these mistakes must burden the world with sorrow. In Buddhism, therefore, perfect love is expressed in the terms of Buddha himself as the example of his own doctrine, an infinite acceptance of man as he is, and an infinite desire, the one remaining desire, to help man to be the thing that man can be. And such devotion is a great devotion. It is a great love that we should serve life and help it to grow. And in the smallest of our personal emotions, we are also serving life. And we are helping the beauty in people to grow. And we are helping the beauty in our children to grow. And we are helping the beauty in our friend to grow. And when we place the frost of negative emotion upon that beauty, we destroy something. We are no longer servants of beauty. And those who are not the servants of beauty cannot be the servants of love. So in this emotion, Buddha is simply telling us that out of our own experience, we have learned, and learned wisely, and perhaps through some bitterness have experienced that our love is not right, because it has not brought us love. It has not brought us peace. It has not given us the inner consolation of spirit. It has not brought us serenity. And because it has not brought these things, it cannot be love, regardless of what we call it. For the natural nature of love is that it shall bring all good things with it. Therefore, we must revise our standards. We must seek more sincerely, and we must learn the laws of love, so that we may obey them, and through obeying them, have a rich and beautiful life. This life is our prayer. It is our daily meditation. It is our continuous practice of the holy life. And in its simplicity, in its naturalness, and in its gentleness, it brings us finally into attunement or at one-ment with that universal love which we all seek, and in the life and presence of which we all exist. Thus, I think we may say from the Buddhist discourses that Buddhism does not seek to destroy emotions, but to make them true and make them beautiful, and give them the strange strength of quietude, which is the deep emotion. For when man is truly moved to his foundation, he is silent. But when he is not truly moved, he is loud, crossly argumentative. And man seeking the greatness of love finds as it he finds all other greatness in silence. In the strange, deep experience of things. And it is this deep, silent experience which causes him to turn around and go forth and serve the world more lovingly and more wisely. Time is up.